morning students, this is Satendra, your language teacher, and today I have brought you quick revision of all the chapters which we have studied so far from First Flight book. We have studied 3 poems and 1 chapter. So I am going to revise from the first poem which we have studied, that is Dust of Snow, written by Robert Frost. Firstly, about Robert Frost, little bit short summary which we have already studied, so that's why I'll go quite faster. Robert Lee Frost was an American poet. His work was initially published in England and later it was published in America. He was born on 26th March 1874, so you remember the date, then you remember the place, San Francisco, California, United States, and he died on 29th January 1963 in United States. He was awarded with Pulitzer Prize for poetry and he was known as US laureates also. So you remember 3 things from here: date of birth, date of death, and his award. Now let's go ahead with the next one. That this is the first poem. The way a crow shook down on me, the dust of snow from a hemlock tree has given my heart a change of mood and saved some part of a day I had wrote. In this poem you have to remember some words like shook, dust of snow, hemlock, a poisonous tree. Rued means held in regret. Here the poet says that the crow which was sitting on a hemlock tree, he shook down dust of snow on me, and because of that my heart changed, my mood changed, and I saved half of my day which I regretted, which I repent, which I spoiled in thinking about my past. That is the whole summary of this poem. Here is the summary. You have to go through this summary. What I told, the same thing has been explained here. If I talk about the next poem, so next poem is Fire and Ice. Fire and Ice, and this has also been written by Robert Frost. So Robert Frost, already we have studied about him, that he was awarded with Pulitzer Prize, born on 26th March 1874 and died on 29th January 1963 in United States. Okay, here this is the poem. Some say the world will end in fire, some say in ice. From what I have tasted of desire, I hold with those who favor fire. In the first 4 lines, the poet says that some people say that this world will finish in fire, and some people say that it will finish in ice. So poet says that fire is like a desire. Fire is like a desire, and like people's desire never ends. It is spreading day by day and spreading very fast like a fire, and it can burn anything. In the same way, he said that if the same speed is going on, so one day people will die, finish because of their desire. He says that but if it had to perish, it means this world, if this world had to finish again, then I think that hate is also enough. Ice is also enough. Ice means hatred. Here fire denotes desire and ice denotes hatred. So he says that hate is also enough to finish this world. Suffice means here, suffice here it means sufficient. So world, to finish this world, hatred is also enough to finish this world. So perish means, you remember, die, finish, and here fire means desire, it has been compared, and ice has been compared with hatred. So here 2 things are there which will finish the world: fire and ice. Fire means desire and ice means hatred of each other, and you can see that how much people hate to each other, that they are ready to kill each other. Even world is also fighting for their hatred, for their desire to spread their area and to hate to each other. They keep fighting. You might have heard about that South Korea and North Korea, how they fight. You might have seen different fight between different war between countries. That is because of desire and hatred. Okay, this is all about this poem. If I talk about the next one, here the fire and ice, that is the same thing which I explained. Like fire stands for desire and ice stands for hatred and coldness. Here fire stands for desire and greed, and ice stands for hatred and coldness. Here if all of you read this poem very clearly, both poem or all 3 poems, then you will be able to score very good marks in that test, because questions are made from here. Okay, so next one you see that here, that is the summary of the same poem. If you want to read the summary, you just pause the video and you can read that one. If I talk about the poetic device, so here poetic device, assonance, alliteration, anaphora, symbolism and personification has been used, which I have already described. So better you read this one. Let me tell you the short. Assonance, it means repetition of vowel sound, a, e, I, o, u. Alliteration means repetition of consonant sound, like a, leaving a, e, I, o, u, all are consonant sounds. Anaphora, it means here if we talk about anaphora, so one word is repeated in 2 lines or 3 lines, then we say anaphora, like some say, some say. Symbolism means something is symbolized, and personification means human quality is given to some non-living things. Okay, now see here, third poem, A Tiger in the Zoo. A Tiger in the Zoo. This poem has been written by Leslie Norris. You have to remember all the poets and author names for giving correct answer. Leslie Norris has written this poem. He is Welsh poet, short story writer. He was born on 21st May 1921 and died on 6th April 2006. Nationality British. In this poem compares 2 tigers. One is in zoo and one is in forest. So poet compares that if the tiger is in zoo, so how does it react, and if the tiger is in forest, then how does it react. So we are going to read this one. See, the first stanza is that he stalks in his vivid stripes the few steps of his cage on pads of velvet quiet in his quiet race. Here in this first stanza, the poet says that the tiger who is in cage is walking a small distance on his soft paws, and he is quite angry because he is behind the bars, he is behind the cage and he cannot show his power. He is quite quiet because of this cage and he is walking only a few distance. If I talk about the next stanza, so poet says here that in second stanza, he should be lurking in shadow, sliding through long grass near the water hole where plump deer pass. Here poet compares that if the same tiger is in forest, then he would be lurking. Lurking, it means, you can see, lurking means hiding. Lurking means taking rest. He said that he should be taking rest in shadow of trees. It means in the forest he would be taking rest. If the same tiger is in forest, he would be sliding through the grass. Sliding means moving through the grass to near the water hole. Not water hole means where the water places, water bodies are made for animals in the forest. So he said that he would be waiting for his favorite plump deer. Plump deer means fatty deer. So poet said that if the tiger is not in cage, so he would be taking rest somewhere in the forest, and in that forest, in the tall grass, he would be moving and waiting for the plump deer to attack and kill them, because plump deer, fatty deer is the favorite of tiger. In next stanza, the poet says that he should be snarling around houses at the jungle's edge, baring his white fangs, his claws, terrorizing the village. He said that the same tiger, if it is not in a cage, so he would be making noise nearby the village at the edge of the jungle. Edge of the forest, edge means bank, means last area of the forest. So nearby the village he would be making noise and baring his white fangs, his claws, means he would be showing his white teeth and roaring, and snarling means making noises by showing his white teeth, his claws, and scaring villagers, means terrorizing villagers. So how he would be terrorizing villagers? By showing his white teeth, claws and fangs. Okay, the next one is the fourth stanza, but he is locked in a concrete cell. He says that again the poet has come to the tiger who is in cage. He says that but he is locked, he has locked in the concrete cell, his strength behind bar, stalking the length of his cage, ignoring visitors. He says that but he is powerful, but he is locked behind the cage and he cannot show his power. His power is behind the cage. He is ignoring the visitors who are coming there. He is just walking some distance in that cage. Next stanza, he says that he hears the last voice at night, the patrolling cars, and stares with his brilliant eyes at the brilliant stars. He says that the tiger is not restful at night also. He is not taking rest. He is in a disturbance, because in the whole day visitors are disturbing, and at night the patrolling cars are making noise. Because of that, he is not able to sleep peacefully, and he stares in the sky with a beautiful eyes. So here his eyes has been compared with the stars, that his eyes are very beautiful and they are staring in the hope of that one day he will be free from all this case. See that here rhyming scheme A, B, C, B is there, and personification like he has been used for the tiger. Metaphor, it means pads of velvet quiet has been compared with his claws. Assonance means here vowel sound has been repeated like I and O. And enjambment, it means sentence is continue in the next line without full stop. So here sliding through long glass near the water hole, water plum deer. So without full stop, 3 lines it is there. So this way poem you might have understood. Now let's go ahead. Oxymoron, you see that quickly. Oxymoron means opposite meaning words like dark day, free market, pleasant pain, quiet race. So race cannot be quiet, it is violent, so that's why it has been used. Alliteration means repetition of consonant sound. So plump, pass, behind bars, these 2 words are there. Imagery means when we imagine something by reading the lines, we make a picture of something in our mind, that is imagery. Onomatopoeia, it means using the words denote sounds, like the words which make sound, splash, buzz, hum, these are onomatopoeia. Now come to the next one here, that is the chapter 1st of prose, A Letter to God, written by G.L. Fuentes. G.L. Fuentes was a Mexican novelist, poet and journalist. He was born on 17th November 1895 in Mexico and died on 10th December 1966 in Mexico City, Mexico. If we talk, remember the poet's name and author's name. Here G.L. Fuentes. This story is about Lancho. Lancho is a poor farmer, hardworking. He is optimistic. He believes in God very much, and he has a very much faith that God is everywhere and God helps everyone. If God has given life to he gives food also to survive. Another character is Postmaster. Postmaster is a fat, amiable and sympathetic person. He is kind-hearted person. In this story, it goes like that. Lancho is a farmer, and he grows corns in his field. He grows corns, paddy, here that corns field you can see. He grows corns in his field, and he feels that if little bit rain is more, then his fields, his corn will be very good and he can earn a lot of money. And he sees that there is a cloudy sky, so he feels that it will be raining very soon. Next morning he is looking in the sky and he sees that it starts raining very soon, and the raindrops were very good. So he compares that these raindrops are silver coins and gold coins. One is of 5 cents and one 10 cents. In this way he compares, and he thanks God for that rain. But the rain converts into hailstone. It means very soon the rain starts very fast, and with hailstones, ole you might have heard, it starts and his whole crop is finished. Once it stops, then he goes to the field with his family members, it means his sons, and he says that now nothing is left, we will die without food, what to eat, nothing is left with us. He goes home. He could not sleep whole night. He kept thinking what will happen whole year, and he says that God is there, then God will help us. And whole night he kept thinking. At last he wrote a letter to God, and he said everything. He said that we cannot survive without money. So he wrote a letter that you give 100 peso. Peso is the currency of some countries, especially Argentina, Mexico and other countries. So he asks 100 peso for whole year unless his new crop comes in the field. So he demands from the God, and he goes to post office. He asked stamps, he pasted it and drop into the drop box, mailbox there. The postman who saw the letter, it was written to God. On the letter it was written to God, and the postman who started laughing by seeing the address, he said that in my whole career I have never seen such kind of address. I have never delivered a address to God. He went to the postmaster, and postmaster also laughed. He thought that the farmer is very poor and he might have written, so he had sympathy for the farmer. But he opens the letter and he read. When he read, his face became quite serious, because on that letter it was written whole heart of the farmer. He has kept his heart open in this letter in front of God. So he wanted, the postmaster now became very much sympathetic, and he thought that he should help economically also. That's why he asked all his fellow members, his colleagues and all his friends, that you have to contribute some money as a donation. He even contributed from his salary also, but even then he could collect only 70 peso. But he decided that at least 70 peso he will give. He gave that 70 peso in that letter. After a few days, the farmer came and he inquired about that. Postman himself, he went there and delivered, he gave that money to him. When the postmaster was just looking from his cabin everything, when he opened the envelope, he found that there were only 70 peso. On his face there was no surprise at all that how money has come and who has given, nothing. He had so much belief in God that God will definitely give him 100 peso. That's why he showed rather anger, and he thought that God cannot commit a mistake in counting. So something is wrong in the post office. God cannot deny me also of giving the money. So he thought that these post officials have stolen the money. So he went to the counter and he asked for another, he asked for pen and ink, and then he asked for paper and he wrote another letter. And he wrote in that letter that, God, the money which you sent, it has not reached to me all. Something is missing. So I want that you give me that money, remaining money also, but don't send by mail, because the post officials are a bunch of crooks. It means they have stolen my money, so you don't send by mail. In this way, Lencho blames postmaster and his officials, and postmaster on another hand, he helped him as a human being. He showed his human quality. So in this way there was a conflict between postmaster and Lencho. Postmaster helps him and Lencho blames him of stealing the money. Here we see that the theme can be many. You can make the theme of this lesson, that man proposes, God disposes. Man thinks about something and God thinks something else. Another thing is here that the message you can see that one should not be so blind in faith that you cannot understand what is right, what is wrong. So this way this lesson ends by just writing his another letter. I hope you might have understood this all. I have given you 10 questions from these lessons. You have to read the 10 questions thoroughly, and better what I have taught you today, you go through all the points very clearly, so your all the answers will be here. Apart from literature part, you have to revise models, preposition and tense, which we have already studied. That will be also the part of your test. I hope you will be doing well. All the best. Thank you for watching.